So I first heard of ESF from Dr. Wall Kimmerer's work. In her writing, I heard, she described SUNY ESF decades ago. She was describing this. And then I was really lucky to meet her in British Columbia. She was visiting the University of Victoria there over a decade ago, I think. And a friend and colleague, Dr. Nancy Turner, just serendipitously invited me to join them for the day, going to some eco-forestry sites. And so I got to learn a little bit more about ESF from that visit, and then sort of had ESF on my radar then for the past quite a while. So when this job posting came up, which Dr. Kimmerer was leading this job search, it was really exciting for the opportunity to get to be part of this community that I've been hearing about, and the great work, not just of the school, but the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment specifically. A few classes I've been lucky enough to teach and be part of here. One of them is Indigenous Issues in the Environment, and that's a class that Dr. Kimmerer designed. And that one's sort of a broad survey course, trying to introduce for many students the myriad considerations if we're thinking about the things that this school does, environment, whether it's management, conservation, sustainability. When we think of these questions, we sort of have our blinders on and we just focus on, well, what does it look like in New York State? Many times, the Indigenous context, whose land is it on in the first place? What is the history of the land? What is the history of relationships of people with the land? And so this class is very much designed to give some insights into things like Indigenous knowledge, treaty rights, the history of here and this continent. And then one other course that we just piloted last fall is called Bright Spots in Conservation. And the idea behind that course is looking around the world from right here in our back door, like stuff that's happening on Onondaga Nation, to stuff happening in Aotearoa, New Zealand, sort of at all these different scales, looking at where conservation outcomes are disproportionately successful for people in the environment. Like, where is it really, really working? We look at case studies of this. We investigate, what are sort of preconditions for bright spots, for conservation success. And we explore how we might think about, in our own lives, whatever students are doing next, how they could cultivate some of these bright spots in their own work. So our work is sort of in a few different buckets. One of them is supporting Indigenous-Led stewardship of lands, of food systems, of conservation. Communities, Indigenous nations in general, have intimate, deep, extensive knowledge of their homelands, of how they work, of how they can be stewarded. So when academic partners want to come in and collaborate, it makes a lot of sense to use Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous governance as the foundation and the starting point, with the work that we do as academics being complementary to that. Another of our big focuses is focusing on species of cultural importance. And so wolves is one of the species we do focus on. Wolves are very important to the Heiltsuk Nation and to other nations, not just on the coast, but across the continent. They're a species that is pretty elusive. They often don't want humans to be nearby. And so we have a number of research directions trying to better understand wolves, especially in Heiltsuk territory. That's a place that we really, really focus on. The techniques that we use and are developing, and our interest also extends to other territories to better understand wolves as a species, because they're also a very, I'd say, misunderstood species pretty much anywhere where they occur. The technologies that we use, we primarily focus on minimally invasive approaches. So we use cameras, we use drones, we use audio recorders, we collect wolf scats, and from that we can do genetics on which wolf left the scat, and also what it's been eating. So we can genetically identify its food, and we can even start to look at interrelationships between wolves, how they're related, how different packs are related, how stable the packs are, with the idea that, this is sort of a dimension of a respectful approach to interacting with these species that is often required of the nations that we're working with. One of the things that I love about being here and about the students here is that we have quite a diversity of students, actually. And so I don't think there is one ESF student, but I think what unites the students and the faculty is the mission of this place, is that folks here, whether they're interested in understanding people, whether they're interested in understanding soils, whether they're interested in understanding the bears or wolves, that they're united in this idea of basically leaving a better tomorrow. I'm really lucky to get to be surrounded by so much cause for hope. Reason for Hope is out there, and there's really exciting stuff happening. And it's happening down the hall at the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment. It's happening across this campus.